lying?
Yeah.
Why would you put him in the room and
I don't know.
lock him in a bedroom, a tiny little bedroom,
Yeah.
with a roided up?
Yeah.
Just stop and think about that. You're in a room smaller than this studio that you and I are in right now, with a roided up.
Well, it is a Pandora's box in a way. Yeah, sure. Because basically, if you go, as my books show, if you go as deep as I went in writing those two books, and you could certainly go deeper, it basically shows that, the world is basically run by a meta cartel.
Jeffrey Epstein didn't hang himself in that cell. He was extracted, and the people who made it happen are still calling the shots. Everyone bought the self-harm story because the cameras failed, the guards fell asleep, and the autopsy photos vanished, until Ghislaine Maxwell's latest court filing landed like a grenade, naming 29 men who allegedly cut secret deals to stay out of the files. The Department of Justice is now scrambling to redact names faster than it can explain why the released documents include forged self-harm footage and a fake letter linking a former president to underage exploitation. The DOJ missed its December 19th deadline to release over 2 million pages of evidence, publishing less than 1%, while Attorney General Pam Bondi claims near-term transparency. Yet her own team has now admitted to planting fabricated materials in the public record. Leon Black paid Epstein $170 million for tax advice, later settled a $62.5 million lawsuit with no charges, and testified about partying with Donald Trump in Moscow clubs, while the DOJ's redaction army works overtime to scrub names from 200 gigabytes of seized tapes they refuse to acknowledge exist. The problem isn't what's in the files. It's that the files are still being edited, and the men who settled aren't acting like men who believe the threat is over. The real question isn't whether Epstein is gone. It's who's still paying to keep the operation running, and what happens when the next batch of names drops before the deadline they've already ignored.
We've seen dozens of new photos we haven't seen before of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with very high-profile people, celebrities, people like Mick Jagger and Michael Jackson, like you showed, also like British royalty and actors. All of that we sort of knew was happening. I want to highlight specifically two for the public interest, and that is President Clinton and
The Department of Justice's latest letter to the federal judges overseeing the Jeffrey Epstein case arrived on a Tuesday, signed by Attorney General Pam Bondi, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, and Manhattan's top prosecutor Jay Clayton. It promised transparency in the near term, a phrase so deliberately vague it might as well have been written in invisible ink. The problem isn't just that they missed the December 19th deadline to release over 2 million pages of documents. It's that they've only made public 12,285 files, less than 1% of the total, while quietly admitting that some of those contain fabricated materials. This isn't a delay. It's a controlled demolition of the truth. The timing is suspicious. Just days earlier, Ghislaine Maxwell's legal team filed a habeas petition naming 29 men who allegedly cut secret settlements with Epstein's victims, men who were never indicted, whose names remain redacted, and who, according to people tracking the case, are still very much in play. Here's where the story starts to bend. The DOJ claims it's protecting victims by redacting names. Yet the files it has released include a forged self-harm video and a fake letter purporting to show Epstein corresponding with convicted abuser Larry Nassar. The documents were so poorly constructed that even the DOJ's own social media accounts issued warnings. That warning wasn't a disclaimer, it was an admission. They're not just withholding evidence. They're actively poisoning the well. And the question no one in the mainstream press is asking is simple. If the files are so sensitive they require this level of manipulation, what's really in the other 99.9% they're still hiding?
Just broke moments ago. The Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released photos from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. We're getting dribs and drabs of this, and we had some pictures already, and here's some. There are some that show Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Steve Bannon, Bill Gates, and others. None of the released images depicts any misconduct. None is believed to depict underage girls. It was not immediately clear when or where.
The answer may lie in the behavior of the men connected to Epstein, men who aren't acting like the threat is over. Take Leon Black, former CEO of Apollo Global Management, who paid Epstein $170 million for what was officially described as tax and estate planning. That's a strange kind of financial advice when the advisor is a registered offender with a documented history of exploitation. Black later settled a separate lawsuit with the U.S. Virgin Islands for $62.5 million. Again, no criminal charges, just a quiet financial transaction to make a problem disappear. But here's the part that doesn't add up. In 2018, Black testified under oath about a trip he took with Donald Trump to Russia in the 1990s. According to his sworn statement, they attended a concert, a discotheque, and may have been in a club together. That's not a memory lapse. That's a man choosing his words carefully, because he knows the wrong ones could unravel something much bigger. And now, with Maxwell's filing naming Black among the 29, the question isn't just what he paid for. It's what he's still protecting.
The Bureau of Prisons gets to decide. The Bureau of Prisons is run independently from the FBI, from the U.S. Attorney's Office, from the judiciary, and who knows where the person's going to go. That's just how it happens.
Right.
So for Ghislaine Maxwell to have been transferred to actually a prison that has very, very minimal security and is just not fit for someone who's been convicted of horrible crimes.
The Department of Justice's handling of the files suggests they're not just redacting names, they're managing an ongoing operation. Consider the 200 gigabytes of seized videos and audio recordings referenced in a July 2025 FBI memo that have yet to see the light of day. The official explanation is that these materials contain sensitive content involving victims. But people familiar with the investigation describe them differently, not as evidence of crimes, but as a ledger. A record of who was where, with whom, and under what circumstances. That's not the kind of material you bury to protect the innocent. That's the kind you suppress to protect the powerful. The DOJ's own polling confirms the public isn't buying the explanation. 66% of Americans believe the government is intentionally withholding information. That's not skepticism. That's a verdict. Then there's the matter of the 29 men Ghislaine Maxwell named in her filing. The DOJ's response has been predictable: more redactions, more delays, more promises of transparency that never arrive. But the silence from the named individuals is even more telling. No denials. No lawsuits. No public outrage. Just a quiet, coordinated effort to keep the names out of the press. That's not the behavior of men who believe the story is over. That's the behavior of men who know the next chapter hasn't been written yet. And if the DOJ is still redacting their names while releasing forged documents, the logical conclusion is that they're not just hiding the past, they're shaping the future. The most damning detail may be what's happening behind the scenes. While the public focuses on the DOJ's stalling tactics, insiders note that Ghislaine Maxwell's prison conditions have quietly improved. She's no longer housed in a high-security facility, but in what's been described as a club-style medium-security prison, with rumors of a work-release program in development. That's not a reward for good behavior. That's a negotiation. And if Maxwell is the only one talking, the question isn't just what she knows, it's what she's being offered to stay quiet. Meanwhile, the DOJ's next deadline looms. And among those watching the case closely, the betting isn't on whether they'll meet it, but on what they'll release to distract from what they're still hiding.
And there was new names in some of the emails that I think investigators need to look at. In particular, I jumped on the name of a modeling agent who, in a similar fashion to Jean-Luc Brunel, who brought underage girls from overseas to Jeffrey Epstein for abuse. There was another man. What was interesting about this other individual is that he also apparently provided young models for Donald Trump's modeling agent.
The files aren't just a record of what happened. They're a map of who's still in the game. And the Department of Justice's behavior suggests it's not just protecting the past, it's managing the present. The forged documents, the redacted names, the stalled releases, none of it looks like incompetence. It looks like a system protecting itself. And if the next batch of files drops before the deadline, the real story won't be what's in them. it'll be what's still missing. The Jeffrey Epstein case was never just about one man's crimes. It was about the infrastructure that allowed those crimes to function as a service for the powerful. And that infrastructure didn't collapse when Epstein allegedly took his own life in a high-security prison cell with 2 malfunctioning cameras and guards who somehow failed to check on him for hours. It adapted. The same network of influence, leverage, and quiet financial transactions that protected Epstein during his lifetime is still operating. And the DOJ's behavior suggests it's not just covering up the past, it's managing an active operation. The real question isn't what happened to Epstein. It's who inherited the system he built, and why the DOJ is so determined to control the narrative around it.
So basically what I argue in my book is that the network behind Epstein, and the reason why there's so many powerful people in this group, is because it's born out of this union that occurred during World War II between organized crime and the nascent U.S. intelligence apparatus, which of course there was a lot of British involvement with that when in the creation of, the CIA and the
Consider the pattern. Leon Black didn't just pay Epstein $170 million for financial advice. He also settled a separate $62.5 million lawsuit with the U.S. Virgin Islands without ever facing criminal charges. That's not a one-time payout. That's a subscription fee. And Black isn't the only one. The 29 men named in Ghislaine Maxwell's habeas petition didn't cut secret deals because they were afraid of lawsuits. They did it because they were investing in continued access to a system that offered protection. This wasn't about avoiding consequences. It was about maintaining privileges. And the fact that none of these men have been indicted, despite Maxwell's filing, suggests the deals weren't just with Epstein. They were with the people who took over his operation after he was gone.
I think these things like Epstein, and there's probably a bunch of other similar operations that are being run, they provide you with like a really good time where maybe you're a high profile, extremely wealthy individual, and it's hard for you to get hosed. And some guy tells you, hey, we've got everything covered, you come to my island, nothing, what happens on the island stays on the island.
The Clinton connection adds another layer. Epstein didn't just visit the White House 17 times during the 1990s. He was meeting with Mark Middleton, a senior aide who later became a key figure in the Clinton Foundation's global initiatives. That's not a coincidence. It's a pipeline. The Foundation's ties to the Maxwell family, particularly Isabel Maxwell, whose nonprofit work overlapped with the Clinton Global Initiative, suggest this wasn't just about personal relationships. It was about institutional access. The same network that allegedly facilitated Epstein's activities in the private sector appears to have had open doors in the political world. And the fact that none of this has been seriously investigated suggests the protection isn't just for individuals, it's for the system itself. Then there's the modeling industry angle, largely absent from mainstream coverage. John Casablancas, founder of Elite Model Management, didn't just run a talent agency. He built a global operation that, according to multiple accounts, functioned as a supply chain for powerful men with specific tastes. His protégés didn't just work in fashion. They ended up in politics, finance, and even the Trump administration. Casablancas himself was openly quoted saying, "I like very young girls." That wasn't treated as a scandal, it was a signal. This wasn't a secret. It was a system with its own rules, language, and protection mechanisms. And Epstein wasn't an outlier in that world. He was a node in a much larger network. The appearance of arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi's name in the same circles as Epstein and Casablancas isn't a footnote, it's a clue. Khashoggi wasn't just an Epstein associate. He was a central figure in the Iran-Contra affair, with deep ties to intelligence agencies and a reputation for operating in gray zones between legality and criminality. His presence suggests Epstein's operation wasn't just about personal indulgence, it was about leverage. If Khashoggi was involved, it's reasonable to infer connections to politicians seeking plausible deniability, businessmen seeking access to power, and intelligence operatives collecting compromising material. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's a business model. Seen through this lens, the Department of Justice's insistence on redacting names and withholding evidence begins to make sense. They're not just protecting individuals, they're protecting the relationships between them. The 200 gigabytes of seized videos and audio recordings aren't merely evidence of crimes. They're a map of who was connected to whom, under what circumstances, and with what implications. And the fact that the DOJ continues to fight their release suggests this isn't just about the past. It's about who still has access to that information, and what they're using it for. The forged documents, stalled releases, and careful redactions don't look like incompetence. They look like damage control for a system that's still operational.
The Justice Department has finally released some of the highly anticipated Epstein files. More than 300,000 pages of documents related to the late convicted offender were made public today. They include photos, flight logs, grand jury testimony, and a lot of heavy.
Ghislaine Maxwell's improved prison conditions and the rumors of a potential work release program aren't signs that the system is weakening. They're signs that she's still part of it. She isn't being rewarded for good behavior. She's being managed. And if she's the only one talking, the question isn't just what she knows. It's what she's being offered to stay quiet. The fact that she's naming names now, after years of silence, suggests one of two things. Either she's been given permission to do so, or she's trying to force the hand of the people still protecting the network. Either way, it's no coincidence that the Department of Justice's redaction efforts have intensified since her filing. They're not just hiding the past, they're negotiating the present. The real distraction isn't the files themselves. It's the endless cycle of leaks that never actually reveal anything. Every few weeks, another batch of documents drops, each hyped as the final bombshell that will expose the truth. The media pounces, the public debates, and then nothing changes. The names are redacted. The key details are missing. The conversation shifts to the next leak, just as hollow as the last. This isn't an accident. It's a strategy. The people who control the narrative understand that as long as the public is chasing shadows, they won't notice the real operation still running in the background. The latest round of leaks is a perfect example. A few heavily redacted emails, some blurred out names, and a handful of unverified tips that lead nowhere. The headlines scream about new revelations, but the substance is always the same, just enough to keep the story alive, never enough to answer the real questions. Meanwhile, the people actually involved in Jeffrey Epstein's network, the 29 men, the politicians, the intelligence-connected figures, remain silent. They don't need to defend themselves. The leaks do the work for them, drowning out real scrutiny with noise. And then there's the timing. Every time pressure builds, when Congress threatens subpoenas, when Maxwell's filings surface, when the public starts asking the right questions, a new leak appears. It's never the full truth. Never the names everyone is waiting for. Just enough to reset the clock, distract the public, and give the real players time to regroup. The files aren't being released. They're being weaponized. And the longer this continues, the clearer it becomes. The leaks aren't the story. The leaks are the cover.
We have a congressional act now to requiring the release, but they're going to say, you know
subject
what?
To
Tom
redaction.
Hanks, it's unfair that he was mentioned because
the law
he was eating
says
Skittles.
Subject to redaction. Subject to redaction.
And we all know what that means. That's to protect.
That's why I'm saying you will never be satisfied with what's released.
The most disturbing implication of all of this is that Epstein's operation wasn't an aberration. It was a feature of the system. The same people who used his services are still in power. The same networks that protected him are still functioning. And the Department of Justice's behavior suggests it's not just covering up what happened, it's ensuring that the system which allowed it to happen can continue to operate. The files aren't just a record of past crimes. They're a ledger of ongoing relationships. And the fact that the DOJ is still fighting to control that information suggests the real scandal isn't what Epstein did. It's who's still benefiting from the system he built. The next DOJ deadline for releasing more files is approaching. But no one following this case closely expects it to be met. The real question is what they'll release to distract from what they're still hiding. More forged documents? More carefully redacted names? Or will something finally slip that reveals the true scope of the operation? One thing is certain, the people connected to Epstein aren't waiting to find out. They're already moving to protect themselves. And if the past is any indication, they'll succeed. So this is where we're left, with more questions than answers. Because that's the point. How does someone like Leon Black pay $170 million to Jeffrey Epstein and walk away without charges? Why are the same names that circulated in Epstein's orbit still untouchable? What's really on the 200 gigabytes of tapes the DOJ refuses to release? And if Epstein's operation was just one part of a larger system, who's running that system now? The comments are open. Tell us what you think. Because this story has proven one thing, the official version isn't just incomplete. It's a lie by design. And the truth, as always, is still being negotiated in the shadows. We'll be watching.